Welcome into the show, everybody. My name is Mark Farzy. This is the Farzy Show, presented by our friends at MyBookie. It's nice to have you along for the ride. We got Charlie Manuel update. We got some Sixers conversation with Kelly Oubre joining the fray. We got some Phillies conversation, of course, when it comes to getting spanked, getting dominated by Spencer Strider, and why today's pitching matchup brings back a horrible memory. That's what it does. But let's start it off with a positive game here, okay, ladies and gentlemen? Let's start it off with Charlie Manuel, who released this tweet yesterday. How about that? Charlie's tweeting. I want to thank all the people who are pulling for me. I am touched that you are showing me love, and I want to thank the hospital down there in Florida, the critical care team, for hustling and being on time. You kept me in the game. Thinking of you, I think thoughts and prayers, thoughts and love, maybe. It's a brain emoji and a heart emoji together. Does that mean thoughts and love? I don't know. But yeah, thinking of you, I don't know. But Charlie Manuel tweeted that out yesterday. Was fantastic. Tweeted it out last night at 7-11. About 13 minutes before first official pitch of last night's ball game. So you know Charlie was watching. I love that he invoked his two rules. I got two rules: be on time and hustle. That's like right after hitting season. That's what I remember from Charlie Manuel as the skipper of the Phillies. Like in terms of the things he would say. And then I think it was saying to Howard Esco, kick your ass. Those are the top three things. But I like that be on time and hustle were the two things he invoked when it came to the doctors. So here's one thing. We know that the doctor's name, that one doctor wasn't Dr. Rollins. Hey, yeah! These are the jokes, folks. I'm kidding. I kid because I love Jimmy Rollins. Anyway, very happy to see Charlie Manuel is feeling good enough to tweet. We know last night or 2 nights ago, he had his phone with him. We know that he was squeezing Missy's hand, his wife, squeezing the doctor's hand, and then nice to see that yesterday, him having some form of communication with the outside world that has been thinking so much about him. So good to see the skip active on social media yesterday. Comforting sign, nonetheless. As for his former baseball team, the baseball team that he managed to two World Series, to one World Series championship, not so good yesterday. I really try so hard when I watch an opponent, for instance, Spencer Strider last night, there are moments where I just start to be dazzled. Like I get through the frustration, just kind of accepting the fact that it's not going to be a very good game for the Phillies offense. Sure, I'm hoping for a breakout inning. I'm hoping a guy like Bryce Harper hits a 3-run home run like he did last night. That was great. That was fine. But with the deficit the Phillies were facing and the piggyback situation, oh, goodness gracious. I wasn't exactly confident that the Phillies were going to pull out a victory. So I'm watching the game, and I really try hard not to drift into being amazed by the opposing pitcher. But how are you not amazed by Spencer Strider? I say he only had 11 strikeouts last night. It felt like it was 20. It felt like he struck out 20 batters with the way his stuff was working for him last night. Nick Castellanos, oh my God. I felt like Spencer Strider was toying with the poor man, toying with him. His first at bat, let's go through that sequence, all right? Here's what happens in the second inning. Nick Castellanos steps up, flails, as you would assume, at a first pitch slider. Why would anyone ever throw Nick Castellanos first pitch fastball? Nick Castellanos takes a hack at the first pitch like he wants to send it back to Philadelphia. He misses. So Spencer Strider throws him the low and away slider, no problem. Then he goes with another slider. Then he goes with another fastball. Then he goes with another slider. Strike three. See you later. And that was it. That was it for him. It was like he had the ball on a string. He struck about 3 times in the game, and each time was worse than the previous time. It was unbelievable. And for the people that talk about the first pitch all the time with the Castellanos, it's just, I hate to accept something that I don't like that a player does, but that's what he does. Very little patience. Yes, he's been better than last year, but last year, going from like ground level to okay, or between ground level and okay to still in the frustrating realm, that's not great. But Castellanos was the only one that struggled. They had 4 hits in total last night. The only inning they were able to get anything going was that top of the 6th inning when they got Rojas with a single, they got Schwarber with a single, and then Harper comes up with a runner on first and third, 2 outs, and he he gets the home run to right field, his 19th of the season. That at least got the Phillies on the board. It was a 7-3 game at this point. You're thinking, all right, maybe. But with the way Spencer Strider is pitching, highly unlikely. Maybe, sure, but highly unlikely, even more so. And then the Piggyback situation. I didn't like it going into it. I talked about it in jest yesterday during the show. This just seems juvenile to me. Like, this seems like video game type of thinking. Now, in a video game, you would just have a pitcher pitch for as long as humanly possible. But anyway, it was just like, oh yeah, we'll just do this with this guy. He's been in the bullpen before, and he'll come in the bullpen again. And then, Christopher Sanchez will go out there, and, he'll throw some innings. It just didn't make any sense to me. So I understand that it was a while since Michael Lorenzen pitched. I understand that he had certainly been struggling as a starting pitcher, and they wanted to have this piggyback performance between Christopher Sanchez and Michael Lorenzen. It did not go well. And Christopher Sanchez only threw 60 pitches last night. There was a lot of runners. There was a lot of runners on the base paths, excuse me. He gave up 7 hits in that time. He also struggled. He walked 1. There's a couple of different times where he was able to pitch himself out of jams, which was fine, but still, it was a lot. For 60 pitches, it felt like there was a lot there. 4 innings of work in total last night for Christopher Sanchez. 7 hits, 1 walk, so yeah, 8 runners on base. He gave up 3 runs, 60 pitches in those 4 innings. That's not great, and he struck out 2. He gave up a home run to Acuna, but it felt like that was the popular thing to do last night. He hit 2. 39 home runs now in a season for that guy. Unbelievable. But watching that game and watching Christopher Sanchez, I thought, all right, he's only at 60 pitches. Yeah, bring him back out. Bring him back out. Give him the 5th inning. And, man, it was a hard stop. It was a hard stop. So they bring in Michael Lorenzen in that 5th inning, and it went about as terrible as it could go. He threw 37 pitches in a third of an inning. He issued 3 walks. He issued 3 hits, 4 runs, all of them earned, 37 pitches, a third of an inning. And on his out, he still allowed a run because it was a sac fly RBI. And then he was pulled. And then Marte came in and got out of the inning rather quickly. That was from dazzled at one pitcher, the opposing pitcher, Spencer Strider, to like feeling legit bad for Michael Lorenzen in last night's game. It was just like, get him out of there, man. Get him the hell out of there. He doesn't have it. Like, what more do you need to see? The guy just doesn't have it. And after the game, he was asked, is this the worst stretch of your career? He's like, no, man, I've been around a while. I've had worse stretches, But I can't imagine he's had worse outings than what he just had in this particular game, especially when you normally in a bullpen situation, not in a situation where it's a piggyback, right? Where you're essentially having 2 starters in one game. They're going to have a guy up. And you can get pulled quickly if you allow a couple hits. You can allow a couple, you walk a couple guys. They'll have somebody up and ready to go. It took a minute last night. It took 37 pitches to try to get him out of that inning. That's pretty terrible. So after the game, they caught up to him. It wasn't in a Cliff Lee dismissive way, but after the game, he said, that's baseball. There's games where you can do stuff well, and there's games where you can't do anything right. And last night was an example of not being able to do anything right in that particular game. He thinks he can get up on a guy like Matt Olson, falls behind, walks him. Walks in a run. Failed to mention that. That's pretty terrible. So it was a rough one for Michael Lorenzen. So last night after the game, here's your skipper, Rob Thompson, talking about what the hell happened when it came to the Philadelphia Phillies and this piggyback start nonsense with Christopher Sanchez and Michael Lorenzen.
And so last time out, most innings in his career that he's pitched, most pitches for the season.
Right.
His next start will be on 4-day on regular rest. So we're kind of managing that too. But yeah, start at the top of the lineup. We're going to go to Michael on the 3rd time through, and it just didn't work out.
I mean, what do you make of Lorenzen? It had been a while since he pitched, but
yeah.
But what do you think?
Well, he threw strikes. He just couldn't. There wasn't any swing and miss, and and a lot of foul balls, and it comes down to execution, really.
It's not like 6 appearances since the no-hitter. I think his ERA is 9.23.
Yeah.
How much of a concern is that?
A little bit, because you know my concerns on no hitters and complete games and things like that, and guys bouncing back. But now he's coming out of the bullpen, so that's another new thing. So, but we'll get him some more work, and he'll be able to bounce back here in a couple of days.
All right. Okay. Here's the thing. They followed up all that with another question about the piggyback. Is the piggyback done? Are we done with piggybacking? Can we be done with piggyback? Please be done with piggyback. Okay. The only question was, are we done with piggybacking? I didn't think I'd have to say piggyback as much as in the show. Rob Thompson said that we'll see. We'll see. It depends on Michael Lorenzen. It depends on when he's going to be available again. And he said it really depends on what Michael Lorenzen is going to be able to do for the rest of the season. He said, as far as his mentality, Michael Lorenzen's a guy who will do anything for the team. That I love. Okay, good. It's not like he's fighting to be a starting pitcher and he's putting his I'm a starting pitcher now. I'm out of the bullpen. Well, because of course he has no leverage that way. You're doing whatever you can to help the ball club. So that's good. He's got the right mindset. He's got the right attitude. So cross that off the list. But I just don't see how this makes sense. I feel like if you're a bullpen guy, you can't be brought in with the idea of you're going to go out there for 4 innings. You're going to go out there for 3 innings. Unless the starting pitcher is getting shelled and you're a guy that can be a long reliever, and I'm sure Michael Lorenzen can be a long reliever, but the idea that you're going to have essentially 2 starters, I think that messes with a guy's mindset. And I think we all know that pitchers, I think especially pitchers above all other baseball players, are creatures of habit. And when you're making a guy a starter, he's already turned himself into a starter after being in the bullpen for most of his career. Then he goes back to being a starter. Now he's back. He goes to the starter with the Phillies and the Tigers, obviously, before they acquired him in the trade deadline this year. Then he goes now back to the bullpen. It kind of pushes it back and forth. And yes, 124 pitches looks like it's certainly taking a toll, even though I know he had, 8 days between starts after that? Doesn't make a lot of sense. And Christopher Sanchez, I know he just came off a record number of pitches for himself. And that's what Rob Thompson was starting to talk about there the first thing he said when I played that cut. I don't know what it is about Christopher Sanchez. They just feel this need to be very protective of him. All the times, it's 5 innings, 6 innings. He's at 75 pitches, 80 pitches. Get him out of there! Get him out! I don't know if 90 pitches to Christopher Sanchez is 124 pitches to Michael Lorenzen and vice versa, but they seem so overprotective of Christopher Sanchez. And he wasn't great yesterday. He didn't have his best stuff, but he had the Phillies in his spot to at least compete for a win. And then Michael Lorenzen came in, and it was, forget about that. That's going by the wayside real quick. So it was a very tough Phillies game to watch. Like I said, four hits for the Phils in total. Last night's game was kind of hard to stomach, as one would assume. When you look at everything else with this Phillies team, you look at Junior Marte came in. He allowed 2 runs in an inning and 2/3. He was able to get those 2 outs when he came in for Michael Lorenzen. Strider in total, 7 innings, 4 hits, 3 runs, 11 strikeouts. Like I said, it might as well have been 20. And then Minter came in. He was perfect. And then Jimenez came in as well. And, he was perfect as well, using just 10 pitches. Good Lord. And Acuna, like I said, 39 home runs. One thing I will say on a lighter note is Bryce Harper is incredible. There was an opportunity there in the first inning, hit the ball on the screws, but he hit it right at Matt Olson there at first base, and maybe the Phillies would have gotten a first and third situation there with Trey Turner on first after he got hit by a pitch. But like I said, it was a line right at Matt Olson, and he ended up getting the double play to get out of the inning. Spencer Strider there on the line out to first. But Bryce Harper is absolutely incredible. He's hit 20 home runs this year after coming back in 5 months from Tommy John surgery. He had the 38-game stretch where he went without a home run. That was pretty bad. That felt like a very, very long time. And I remember saying at the time, He was in Atlanta, and he hit a 445-foot home run. And then he went 38 games without hitting another home run. That's bonkers, man. That's absolutely bonkers. Longest stretch of his Phillies career. I think the second longest stretch in his career. And now you're talking about a guy who's got 11 games left to hit one more home run to get to 20 on the season. I know I talk about the 20 home run plateau for a guy like, the mark for a guy like Alec Boehm, how much that would mean to him. But a guy who missed a month, a guy who learned first base in the process, and a guy who is now your first baseman. He is your regular first baseman now. It's been like that for a couple of weeks. It is pretty remarkable. And the fact that he was the only guy to come up with a big hit last night, that's remarkable as well when nobody else could get the Spencer Strider. Because he really did have his best stuff last night. That was pretty insane. But Bryce Harper amazes me. And I thought this was really interesting. A couple of game-adjacent stories from last night. One was something they were talking about during the broadcast, and then the other was a story actually I read yesterday in Inquirer by Matt Breen. Phenomenal story. We'll get to that in a second. But Bryce Harper has been spectacular this year, and I am amazed at how he has played. And they started talking about this during the broadcast. What about next year? John Kruk brought it up, and I thought it was interesting. My eyebrows went up, my ears perked up for a second because they're talking about potentially first base next year. My thought, if I had to guess what the Phillies do next year, so let's jump way ahead to this, past this wild card race, past the playoffs, through the offseason, and into next year. My guess has been that Rhys Hoskins is going to sign a one-year prove-it deal with the Phillies. He's going to play first base. You're going to have Bryce Harper go back to the outfield, and you're going to have Nick Castellanos or Kyle Schwarber go back and forth. Actually, Castellanos as an outfielder has improved tremendously. So I have no problem with him remaining as an outfielder. So then what do you do with Brandon Marsh? What do you do with Yohan Rojas? There's a whole other conundrum that's out there. There's a whole other problem that awaits you, right? So they're talking about it for next year. Who's going to be your starting first baseman? Who's going to be your regular first baseman? Who are going to be your corner outfielders? It was an interesting conversation, but Rhys Hoskins' name was never brought up. Maybe, look, this is just speculation. But I would think if the broadcast crew was talking to anybody from the team, which I'm sure they do, they would get an idea of who's going to be at first base to start out next season. Now, maybe Kyle Schwarber is going to be playing in the left field. Maybe Yohan Rojas, Brandon Marshall platooning in center, and maybe Rhys Hoskins is your designated hitter. Maybe, but his name was never mentioned. For a guy that is working his ass off to try to come back, like I look, as much as it was unlikely that Bryce Harper was going to come back in 5 months, I didn't put it past him. But a guy, get injured the last day of spring training, having the ACL tear, and then trying to come back by the playoffs, that's insane. That's bonkers. And I just didn't think it was ever possible. To give Rhys Hoskins all the credit in the world, it looks like he has tried, and he's still not giving up to join the Phillies at some point during the playoffs. So if the Phillies have a deep playoff push, maybe you would see him in there at the World Series. Maybe. But I still think highly unlikely. When I see the reports that come out about it, where he's at, and Rob Thompson even said it's unlikely, I think, good for him for trying, but I just don't see it. I don't see it happening. I'd be shocked. I wouldn't be shocked if it was Bryce Harper coming back from Tommy John surgery. I'd be shocked if it was Rhys Hoskins. So I just found it was interesting that he wasn't part of the conversation when they brought him up yesterday. But the Phillies still have a lot of other things to worry about. Now, before I get to that next story surrounding the Phils, I want to put this up. This is the most recent wild card standings after last night's ball games. Phillies 2.5 games up now. Yee! 2.5 games up now on the Arizona Diamondbacks. After last night's games, the Diamondbacks won 8-4 over the San Francisco Giants. The Marlins, by the way, they're still a half game out. They're a half game behind the Cubs, who occupy the third wild card spot as of right now. The Cubs had themselves a ball game after a rain delay at Wrigley Field. The Cubs jumped all over the Pittsburgh Pirates 14-1. Bailey Falter took the loss in that one. Holy Lord. Remember the Phillies traded Bailey Falter there for Randolfo Castro? Yeah, everyone's favorite Philly, Randolfo Castro, right? So it was not good. Bailey Falter was, I guess, the opener for that one. He pitched 1 inning, allowing 2 runs, and that was enough to give him the loss. After that, listen to this. They allowed, as you would assume, 12 more runs, but Bailey Falter gets the loss because he started the game. He was the opener. That's a shame. It was what a wild game last night. Cody Bellinger went yard, his 26th home run of the season for the Cubs. He's just continued to be incredible. Average down to only 310. Come on there, Cody Bellinger. What's going on there? But the Cubs won last night 14-1. They absolutely rolled. And then the Marlins had a lead on the Mets, lost the lead, and then came back to win it in the bottom of the ninth on a Jake Berger RBI single. So that's where we are right now in the wild card standings for your beloved Philadelphia Phillies. I got to mention this story before I get to anything football-wise with the Eagles here. If you have a chance, yesterday morning there was a story that came out from Matt Breen on Inquirer.com. That's phenomenal. Now, if you're like me, you experienced that 2008 World Series championship with the Phillies, and it was the first championship of your life, okay? So that's near and dear to you. And if you're like me, you were at the parade, and you saw Pat Burrell leading the parade down Broad Street after they came down, what was it? They came down JFK, I think it was, came down Market, made the right by City Hall, went down Broad Street to the stadiums, and on the Budweiser wagon, I guess, I don't know what you call it, being pulled by Clydesdales, was Pat Burrell, his then wife, now divorced, and his dog Elvis. I think it was a bulldog, Elvis. And he stands up and raises his arms, and the already raucous crowd on hand on Broad Street goes bananas, just absolutely bananas. And I remember getting chills, and I remember thinking in that moment how awesome it was, and thinking like how everyone in my family, every sports fan in my family would tell me about like the Flyers parades of the 70s, the Sixers parade, the Phillies parade in 1980, like all that, all these great parades the city has had, and how amazing it was. And man, I remember when I experienced, I felt like everybody undersold it. And I remember the pinnacle of that parade was watching Pat Burrell go down Broad Street, being pulled by Clydesdales on that Budweiser wagon. It was pretty awesome. And I also remember thinking, like, Pat Burrell was a guy who hit barely over the Mendoza line after a career year of 37 home runs and just absolutely being having an incredible year. And the Phillies giving him a big contract at the time, big contract, $50 million. You know what I mean? It was absolutely insane. And then I remember Pat Burrell kind of just going away after the 2008 World Series. The Phillies said they wanted to get younger in left field. They did not. They signed Raul Ibanez, who was incredible for half a season before coming back down the earth. And the Phillies lost the World Series. Anyway, that's the history lesson. So then Pat Burrell started popping up with like Tampa Bay. He popped up with San Francisco. And now he's in the Giants organization. He was there as a scout for a while. And then he was in the minor league organization where he is right now as a hitting coach. So I'm reading the story by Matt Breen in the Inquirer, and it's a reflective piece on Pat Burrell and what he's doing now. And I am very happy for a guy that was always known to party, and stories continue to leak out every so often about what went down at Pat Burrell's condo in Center City after the Phillies won the World Series. And we had Brett Myers on this show talking about how the police escorted them to do a beer run. Like I've heard stories from Jen Utley about how great that party was, about how they at that party they first heard Harry Callis's call of the Phillies being 2008 world champions, and then Jen Utley and Chase Utley went home where they had a puppy, and the puppy had pooped all over the place. So they ended their World Series celebration by cleaning up puppy poop around the apartment. You know, but as wild as that party was, as wild as those days were for the Phillies, Pat Burrell was known to party. He even put it in his Hall of Fame speech here in Philadelphia when he retired, or when he got inducted to the Wall of Fame. He said, you know, thanks to the bar owners, basically. And how about this? the story, I'm very pleased. He is 5 years sober, Pat Burrell. And one of the things that really jumped out to me, and I don't want to give away the whole story, but it's a really touching moment. He talked about how, I can't remember the young player's name for the Giants, but he talked about how he had helped coach this one player, like really worked on his swing with him. And he said that he was watching this particular Giants game where the kid was making his big league debut, and he hit a home run. And Pat Burrell he was watching the game, and his now wife, his second wife, I guess, looked over at him and said, "Wow, you're crying." And Pat Burrell was just like, "It's just very emotional because I've been there. Like, I remember, my time in the big leagues and getting called up to the big leagues and having to wait a day to play because of a roster situation." And he goes, I've been there. And to see a guy like Pat Burrell, or read about a guy like Pat Burrell being that emotional about bringing a young guy along and then watching him make his big league debut and hitting a home run, he said it's just a really special thing. And he doesn't take anything for granted. He seems like he is in a fantastic place. Not that I ever felt bad for Pat Burrell, but just for a guy to kind of find his place after playing. And especially me being in a mindset after just watching the Jason Kelce documentary, thinking about an athlete trying to find their own identity after they play, because that can be really rough for people, as we know the stories. And Pat Burrell seems to be in a fantastic place. And the guy is a Philadelphia sports hero. And, there's just to see him kind of find his way through it and find an area where he could be happy, content, whatever, and enjoy the game of baseball still. It's an absolute beautiful story. So if you have an opportunity and you feel a little nostalgic, especially on a week where the Phillies are the action and the Eagles don't play till Monday night, and there's this long layoff, of course, and you want to feel a little nostalgic about going back on the Wayback Machine, if you will, go ahead and check out that story there by Matt Breen on Inquirer.com, because it is fantastic. Wish I remember the player's name. Was it Slater? It wasn't Austin Slater, was it? Definitely not. Yeah, he's been around a minute. Anyway, it'll come to me. Let's move it over and talk about the Eagles, ladies and gentlemen, before we get to our chat check. Eagles are in an interesting situation here. Again, they are without our friend Avonte Maddox. Avonte Maddox doesn't get enough credit for how good a corner he is. I know he had a rough first week against the Patriots. He bounced back in that game, had a good play. He forced a fumble, obviously, in week 2 against the Vikings that really helped the Birds out as well. Like, the guy can make plays from the corner, from the slot corner position. And when we had him on this show and we did SkyDrive with him, that's one of the things that we talked about a lot, was how that corner position, that nickel corner position, has become increasingly more important. Like, as linebackers have depreciated in value, as running backs on the offensive side of things have depreciated in value, that slot corner position has been amazing. The inflation surrounding the slot corner position has been something spectacular in football. As it becomes more and more of a passing league, you're looking to stop the passes that go on in the NFL. That makes it even more important. So not having Avonte Maddox now kind of sucks. And now James Bradbury's still working his way through concussion protocol, so the Eagles aren't giving you any information as far as that goes. And I hope, and I would assume, he will be ready to go come Monday night against Tampa Bay, who also enters this game 2-0 on the season, and Baker Mayfield and Mike Evans seem to be finding themselves on the same page very quickly. So that could be a bit of an issue. Chris Godwin, obviously pretty damn good wide receiver here. This is something the Eagles are going to have to figure out. So what are the options now for your Philadelphia Eagles? Well, assuming that James Bradbury is good to go, are you going to see a guy like Josh Jobe back out there? Are you going to see a guy like Mario Goodrich? Are you going to see other corners step up and try to handle that position? Because it has been a far cry and a big drop-off, even going back to last year. And we all remember Josiah Scott getting beat in Dallas against the Cowboys time and time again. You don't want to go back to those types of struggles no matter who comes in. Keely Ringo going to get an opportunity here. Pick six Ricks. Is he going to get an opportunity to get out there? Eli Ricks. I don't know the direction the Eagles go. I wish I had a good feeling about anybody they put out there. If you're going to move Josh Jobe to the inside after getting a start on the outside when filling in for James Bradbury, then I want to see if that kid does have the versatility. But here's one thing I don't think is going to happen. We've talked about it a lot in the preseason. We talked about it a lot in training camp about how Sean Desai, of course, has confidence in all his players, blah, blah, blah. But one thing he did was he moved James Bradbury a lot throughout training camp. He kept him in the outside spot. He moved him into play the nickel corner position. He moved him into play that spot. When you see a guy like James Bradbury, who has talked about it before, and we played it on the show, about how, I just want to get experience. He hasn't been lined up to play slot corner in his career, only by accident. But it was never a play call to go out there and play the position. All right, this one, James Bradbury going to be in the slot. No, he would be following his receiver. He'd be in man coverage, and all of a sudden, wouldn't even be the nickel corner spot. He just would wind up in the slot because that's where his receiver that he was assigned to ended up drifting during motion. I'm fine if they want to make a change to that spot, but it's not happening. I think the way they're going to play this is James Bradbury, when he comes back, is going to be on the outside, and you're going to have probably Josh Jobe now have his versatility tested. Eli Ricks might get that tested. Keely Ringo might get that tested. The Eagles did go out and make an acquisition yesterday in Taiwan Mullen. He joins the Eagles now. They added him to the practice squad, so we'll see if he gets elevated. But they have a lot of decisions to be made. But here's one thing that I really feel good about. And it goes into what we were talking about yesterday with Seamus Clancy, and it goes into what I've talked about with Jalen Carter. In the offseason, when we were talking about running backs and the idea of putting a guy like Bijan Robinson behind this offensive line, man, that'd be incredible, right? How awesome would that be? Bijan Robinson behind this offensive line? Wow. Well, you could get guys like Kenny Gainwell here to perform well. You could, obviously, after the last week's performance of DeAndre Swift, you could get him to perform rather well behind this offensive line. My point throughout that entire process was that you could have running backs that are okay, and they'll look great behind this offensive line. Case in point, DeAndre Swift. I think he's better than okay, but he's not elite. He's not like the best running back in football, right? I think the same thing about the quarterback position and even the safety position. Any member of the secondary with this Philadelphia Eagles team, you can perform well if you don't have to cover for long periods of time. And what this Eagles defensive line can do, with their edge rushers included in that, guys like Hassan Reddick, even though as of right now, not looking great with the injury he has to his thumb. Hopefully he comes out on the other side of that rather soon. And the pass rush you're able to generate from your defensive line and the interior members of your defensive line, like Jordan Davis, like Jalen Carter. One thing you got to keep in mind when you're trying to evaluate what the Eagles are going to do and the amount of success they can have when they're missing corners, whether it's James Bradbury with a concussion or it's Avonte Maddox with a torn pec, one thing you have to keep in mind is how good this defensive line is. And you can use that as a saving grace. It helps me keep my sanity when I think about injuries to the secondary, whether that's Reed Blankenship missing time with busted up ribs, that's James Bradbury with a concussion, or that's right now Avonte Maddox with the torn pec. Whoever the Eagles are going to have in that secondary come Monday night against Tampa Bay in Tampa, I'm going to feel okay about it because of your front four more than anything. About the guys who are going to be getting that push. And I know we're going to concentrate on the secondary and who are going to be missing from the secondary. And yeah, that sucks, especially when you have a guy like Mike Evans lurking, right? And Baker Mayfield, who has been playing some of his best football in his career in his first two games with Tampa. One thing that makes me feel warm and fuzzy is the idea that pass rush is going to get home against this Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense. And that makes me feel fantastic. Before I get to the chat check, there was one more. No, that was it. Let's get to the chat check and see how you wonderful people are doing on this fine morning. Got it over here on Jacob Media. See how you wonderful people are doing. What's going on? Babs! Oh, what's going on, Babs? Spawn of Odin. Good morning, Spawn of Odin. Sweet Odin's Raven. Good morning to you. Barbara. Farzy, I guess I'm in the minority because I don't miss Hoskins at all. Can't run or throw or field, and certainly don't miss his strikeouts. I do miss Rhys Hoskins. I know that's not exactly the most popular thing in the world to say, but I do miss Rhys Hoskins. It's weird in this lineup. He would mean more Schwarber in left, which I don't want. Harper at first has been pretty damn good. I have not, thrown, my hands up in the air wondering what the hell the Phillies are doing, what the hell someone's doing at first base when Rhys Hoskins, when Alec Boehm or Bryce Harper have been at first base. So that feels good. Babs, I love Pat the Bat. I'm glad he's happy and healthy, as am I. Farzy, Pat was an integral part of the Giants' 2010 championship team. They love him to this day in San Francisco. Absolutely. I think the Giants catcher, Bard. Yes, I think you're right. That could be accurate. I'll have to double check it. As far as the guy that Pat Burrell coached up. Spawn of Odin. You like that? Laugh out loud? I do like that. That's funny. That is funny. Thank you, Jacob Media. I'll check back with you guys in a second. Let me go over to the Farzy Show YouTube channel and see how you guys are doing. Let me put this up real quick. The fun of a live show. When you're feeling under the weather. Okay. All right. Now I see a hot button issue. Let me just jump to this. It's the first thing I see when I flip over to the Farzy Show YouTube channel. Sean Desai, this is from A. Sean Desai is Jonathan Gannon 2.0. Shake my head. Could not disagree more. I do not see that. I actually see Sean Desai blitzing regularly. And I did not see that from Jonathan Gannon. And he's doing it smartly. He did it with Nakobe Dean. He did it with Christian Ellis. He actually blitzed linebackers up the middle. He had a safety blitz with Reed Blankenship that was slow developing in week one. I'll say that. I put that more on Reed than I do on Sean Desai because at least Sean Desai called the play. I don't – in the two – let's put it this way. Isolated, just judging him, I do not see Jonathan Gannon. I see shades of the same thing that Nick Sirianni wants to see, where you have guys playing off, you don't have a lot of jam coverage. So that's just the way the Eagles are going to play. But as far as the uptick in aggression, I've noticed it. Absolutely, I've noticed it when it comes to Sean Desai. I don't see this is just Jonathan Gannon all over again. I don't see that. I've seen that argument, but I disagree with it. Love you, but I disagree with it. Let's get to the top of this now. See how you guys are. Sean Kilrain, what's going on? Did the Phillies play last night? Asking for a friend. They did, sort of. Morning, Sean Gillespie. Phillies played yesterday? Yes, they did. Bryce is the only consistent positive for the Phillies. Yeah, Sean Kilrain, I did ask that question. It was during the home run lull for Bryce Harper. How many home runs did he hit? Did we say he'd get to 20? I don't think we said that he would get to 20. Nonetheless, pretty remarkable. Sure, let's go. Go Pat Burrell. Absolutely. Good morning. Officially, good morning. Forget about them Phillies and the Sixers. Thanks. Thank God we have the Birds. See, I'm not there. I don't shift into that. Like, even last night, the thought never crossed my mind of like, go Birds. You know what I mean? Especially if the team's in a playoff spot. And the Phillies are in a playoff spot right now. That's why I am, and I've said this for years. I've said this multiple times. I've gotten killed for it. That's why I don't like the Eagles chant at Phillies games, especially in South Philly. If you're like on the road, if you're in Wrigley or something like that, and you just want to see how many people are from Philly and you belt out an Eagles chant, that's fine. That's cool. But like when it's a one-run game in the Phillies, like it was a couple of weeks ago, and you hear an Eagles chant, it's like, really? Nah, no thanks. I've been saying that for years, and every single time I get shouted down. It's an Eagles first out. Yeah, it's great, but if you're at the Phillies game, shouldn't the Phillies be your first team? Like, if they're down 20, I get it. Anyway, Birds really missed Devontae last year. Yeah, I agree. It's like, you want to know how good somebody is? You'll see how much you miss them. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. Anytime Avonte Maddox has been hurt, and unfortunately it's been often, his absence had made me long for the return of Avonte Maddox. Says IBH. Birds really missed Avonte last year. Josiah Scott could not cover the position. I concur. Yeah, see, that's the real test I want to see from Sean Desai, is when the Eagles need to make an adjustment in the second half. Who's saying the adjustment thing? Sean Gillespie. Yeah, I agree. As long as Desai can make the adjustments, Can 2.0 would be a... Wait. Oh, okay. So you're saying if he's like Jonathan Gannon but can make adjustments, then we're good. I don't think A, to start off, well, I'm not saying A, you. I'm saying A and B. A, as long as we start off with a guy that's a little bit more aggressive, and B, we also have a guy that can make adjustments. So we're much better off with Sean Desai. Plus, I went back and I watched that Giants Cardinals game yesterday, and I am amazed. Like, the Cardinals, in the second half, the Cardinals offense didn't have a 3-and-out until the third quarter, until late in the third quarter. And then they had back-to-back 3-and-outs. So that's the offense. You didn't really necessarily put that on the Jonathan Gannon. But then they also started with having penalties. And that's a direct reflection on the head coach. And that started giving the Giants more opportunities, obviously. Better field position, and they capitalized on it. I see Zach Ertz get a couple catches. Sean Kilmer, Hassan Reddick, rusty due to that thumb. It's hindering him. Once he's 100%, I say watch out. I agree. Our front is scary. Like I said, it's a revolving door. Pick your position. I absolutely agree with that. You're definitely seeing the effect of the thumb with Hassan Reddick right now. I don't think that Hassan Reddick is going to go on to have this incredibly down year. I think he is going to have a slow start. That's where I think he's at right now. So, yeah, I absolutely expect Hassan Reddick that once he's 100% to just start wreaking havoc. And then once he starts doing that, how that's going to open up other things for other players as well. Elaine Cronin, good morning. Nice to see you again. What do we have here? Avonte. Sean Gillespie. Avonte is so small, it seems to get injured, but he's so talented. It's maddening. Rooting for him fervently. Thank you. Sean Kilray, I said 18. You said 18 home runs? That a guy? Jeff, what's up? Morning, Mark. Eagles line moved to -5. It was originally 6.5. 100% Tampa Bay line. Trap game for sure. Take Tampa cover. Vegas always knows. Ugh. Let me ask you guys this. You mentioned the word trap game. I had this conversation right before the season. We were talking about the schedule, me and a buddy of mine. And the schedule had to do with, the conversation had to do with trap games and letdown games. Is a game really a trap game? Like, if you see the game beforehand and you go, that's a trap game, and then afterwards, let's say the Eagles blow out the opponent, is it still a trap game? Or is it just another game on the schedule? And then I'll also ask you this question. If you blow a team out in 1 week, and then you win another game, and then you go to play another team, say, on the road, and that's a letdown game. That's going to be a letdown game. And then the Eagles blow that team out. Is it still a letdown game? I say no. Because regardless of how I feel or anyone outside the organization feels about it, if they still blow that team out, that's just another game on the schedule. It's not a trap game. It's not a letdown game. It has the potential to be it, but once you're not let down, or the Eagles, in this case, don't let you down, then it's no longer a letdown game. Oh, it's still a letdown game, but they won it. Well, how did you feel afterwards? Did you feel let down? Well, no. Well, it's not a letdown game. I'm asking that question to you guys. All right, it's a great debate I have in my idiot group of friends of mine that I am included in. I am too a moron. So Trap game, letdown game. If you win it, do you still look back and go, that was a letdown game? Just because of my arbitrary labeling of the game doesn't mean anything. That's my feeling. Other people feel like it means something. I feel like it means nothing. So I'll ask that question. Also, Mark, will Deion do it again against Oregon? 20 points on. That was wild, man. I don't watch a ton of college football. But Deion Sanders is incredible. Like the man in the game of football has stayed relevant for like my entire life. It is, whether it's playing for Atlanta and then also playing for the Braves, like playing for the Falcons and playing for the Braves, and just the whole whirlwind of his career, and then his broadcasting career, and now a college head coach. What? It's absolutely insane. Jeff says trap game. Baker is dangerous. Two good wide receivers. Yeah, I see it, but looking into it, trap game. Okay, I can see why looking at the game before you play the game, you go, oh, it's a trap game. But after the game, if they blow out the Bucs, it's like, well, there's nothing to worry about. Like, so does the label only exist pregame? And then it only exists postgame if they lose, right? Like, here's what I find. I find it hard in the first 3 weeks of the season, especially after this long layoff between games, that this Bucs game is a trap game. I find it hard to believe that. And hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully it's not. Hopefully after the game, they just win. Babs, what's up? Back on the Jacob Media YouTube channel. What's going on? Farzy, I agree with you that the Eagles chanted Phillies game is disrespectful to the Phillies organization and really Phillies fan. Spawn of Odin, I agree with your take on it. Thank you. The chant or the trap game thing? Yeah, here's the thing. I guess as a performer, you hear stand-up comics talk about it all the time, about how like someone will be on their phone or someone will be talking, and it's just like you're ignoring what's on stage. Or anyone that walks out of a performance, even if it's go to the bathroom, if you're on stage, you're looking at it and you're just like, I'm not saying don't go to the bathroom, go to the bathroom. But I'm just saying, you just on stage, it's just like disrespectful to the person that is trying to entertain. I'd rather you boo. At least I know you're paying attention to the performance then. Know what I'm saying? Thanks everybody in the chat. Always a pleasure. Oh, Jeff, you agree with me? Okay. All right, we're on the same page there. You agree with me, Mark? Pre-game, it's how you see it. If they lose, and if they lose, I agree with you. Yeah, there you go. Oh, and if they lose, yes. Trap game conversation that we were having a second ago. Before I move on to our morning rush, before I move on to our morning rush, let me tell you about the amazing people at MyBookie. MyBookie, you can have an incredible time, especially when you use promo code Farzy at MyBookie. MyBookie has amazing offers right now. When it comes to the NFL season, when it comes to college football, comes to the rest of pro football, when it comes to everything, you can check it all out at MyBookie and just how incredible they are at MyBookie. MyBookie, they have college ball, NFL, all of it, brand new cash out systems that gives you the options to bet and win all season long. First two legs of your parlay hit, cash out early and place another bet and let it ride for a chance at a bigger payday. Join us at MyBookie for the entire season, filled with daily odds boosts, same game parlays, and huge prize pool contests. Right now, MyBookie has no strings attached cash bonus that lets you deposit and withdraw quick. Use promo code Farzy. That's promo code Farzy on your first deposit of $50 or more, and you can receive up to $200 in cash instantly credited to your MyBookie account. That's promo code Farzy to claim your own cash bonus right now. You can bet anything, anytime, anywhere, only with MyBookie. So once again, use promo code Farzy on your first deposit of $50 or more, and you can receive up to $200 in cash instantly credited to your MyBookie account. Use promo code Farzy on your MyBookie account to claim your own cash bonus right now at MyBookie. So make sure you guys check out MyBookie and use promo code Farzy. Here we go. Looks like the Sixers are bringing in Kelly Oubre for your morning rush brought to you by Sky Motor Cars, skymotorcars.com. Kelly Oubre, 20-point scorer. Going to be a very interesting addition to this team. I like it. I like the acquisition. It's weird to look at the Sixers adding a 6'6" wing that can score, that can shoot a little bit, that can attack the basket, shoot a little bit, shoot a lot. I'm a little amazed with the distraction of James Harden and how the Clippers have now reportedly said, according to Windhorse put it out there, the Clippers. Remember 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, the Sixers have ended all trade talks about James Harden. Yeah, sure. Now the Clippers have ended all discussions about a possible trade for James Harden. I'm like, they were still going on until the Sixers ended those conversations. I told you at the time it was BS. It was still BS. I still think this is all BS. But in the distraction of following the bouncing ball that is James Harden, Patrick Beverley being added to the fray. All right. Hey, Mo Bamba. Hey, another set. Yeah, sure, bring them all down, man. And now Kelly Oubre. Okay, there, Daryl Morey. Have yourself a quiet off season while everyone's distracted of what the hell else is going on. 6'6", 27 years old. That's what he was. 27. Couldn't remember if he was 26 or 27. 26 years old, coming off a 20-point performance per game last season. He has been with Charlotte the last 2 years. Had a career high in points, so that was great to see for him. Doesn't shoot well from 3-point range. Shoots 43% from the floor. That's what he was able to do last year. Got about 32 minutes a game. This is a guy that can play some basketball for you. I think it's a very good addition there for the Sixers to get another scorer in this lineup. Absolutely love to see that, and especially if you eventually do deal James Harden. This is a nice guy to have in your backcourt as well. So I appreciate it. Front court. It's a great idea to see this guy as a wing player. Yeah, I'm all for it. Today, this afternoon, 12:40 start time. Phillies are going to get underway with the Atlanta Braves. Here's what they have in store. Bryce Elder gets the start against Aaron Nola. These two have faced off against each other before. It was Elder's only start against the Phillies this year. He's a 24-year-old right-hander who is 12-4 on the season with a 3.50 ERA. Aaron Nola started against the Braves twice this season, but in this particular start, let's go back to June 22nd. Phillies were only 3 weeks in to being one of the best teams in baseball for a long time, starting on that June 2nd. In that game, Elder went 7 innings, allowing 3 hits, no runs, 2 walks. So he tossed 7 scoreless against the Phils. Also in that game, Aaron Nola tossed 6 scoreless against the Phils, but the Phillies lost the game in 10 innings, 5-1. Do you remember what happened in that game? Well, if you watched Fighting's postgame on the Jacob Media YouTube channel last night, you know what happened in that game. Kyle Schwarber's egregious 2-out error in left field against the Braves. Was it off the bat of Austin Riley? I think it was off the bat of Austin Riley. He had a line drive, fly ball, whatever, to left field. Kyle Schwarber came charging in on it, tried to go into some kind of weird headfirst slide, dive, something. Anyway, the ball was very catchable. It hit his mitt. He dropped it, and they went on to score 4 more runs in the inning. He had the 3rd out in his mitt and dropped it. Phillies would have, if he made the out there, the Phillies would have gone into the bottom of the 10th inning with a 1-0 deficit. Instead, they went in with a 5-0 deficit. They were going to get 1 run on an Alec Boehm RBI. I think it was a sac fly. Can't remember. But all I remember is Kyle Schwarber absolutely in that instance cost them the game. That was bad. Kyle Schwarber's improved in left field since then, which I'm happy to see. And he's barely been in left field. Well, he's been in left field a lot since then, but recently has not been in left field a lot. So we'll see what happens in this afternoon's game. 12:20 start time in Atlanta as the Phillies play their last game of the season against the Braves. And then after this, they have they come back to Citizens Bank Park after their 6-game road trip. And imagine this, winning a series. It would be nice to have the good version of Aaron Nola tonight. Then they have a 4-game series at home against the New York Mets. Then they have 3 games against the Pittsburgh Pirates before going to New York for their final 3-game series of the season and final series of the season in New York against the Mets in Flushing, Queens. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, everybody. My name is Mark Farzetta. This is the Farzy Show presented by MyBookie. Check out MyBookie. Jim Hyde Bruce program did a wonderful job as per usual. I'll be back with you guys on the Jacob Media YouTube channel today following what will hopefully be a Phillies victory. I'm going to say the Phillies win this game today, and I'm going to say the Phillies win this game 4-3 over the Atlanta Braves. Aaron Nola has the good stuff today. Aaron Nola only allows those 3 runs. That's what I'm going to go with, and he's going to give you 6 1/3. That's what he's going to give you today. Yeah. All right, anyway. I'll catch you guys later. Have a great rest of your day. I'll see you guys after the Phillies at 12:20. Bye.